What's your favorite no effing way story? Story 1. One winter I went sledding down a popular hill in my home with my brother and his wife. At the bottom of the hill, there's a frozen pond. My sister-in-law hops on the back of my sled, sitting in the back, and we went down together. Due to the extra mass, we started going way faster than I had expected when I noticed we were heading right toward a little kid. I just couldn't maneuver out of the way, so I leaned forward and scooped the kid up, holding him like Simba. Then I realized we were about to sled into a frozen pond, so I bailed out and held the kid as high over my head as I could. I stood up, set the kid down, and looked around for his parents. When I saw a big dude coming at me, I was like, oh crap, here we go. Then he got closer, and I realized it was one of my closest friends, and that the kid I ran into was his son, who I babysat regularly. I thought to myself, no effing way, and gave him a big hug. The kid said he thought it was awesome. Story 2. I worked at a small restaurant on the north shore of Lake Superior the summer of my junior year in college. The woman who owned it was an ultra-conservative fundamentalist Christian. They sold plots of land to people for Y2K. After a full summer of craziness, I had enough and wanted to go on a trip. My brother and I and a friend decided to go see the Grand Canyon, so I told the owner that I had to work on a paper for Bible school and would like to leave a couple weeks early. She was reluctant, but in the end sent me off with her blessing because I was doing the Lord's work. So we head out on a road trip to the Grand Canyon, never bothering to look on a map as to where it actually was. We ended up somewhere out west at a place called the Grand Canyon that looked totally unimpressive. So we headed up to Glacier National Park as an alternative. We pulled into a gas station near Glacier, and who the F do I see but the owner that I lied to and her entire family that I'd gotten to know throughout the summer. I ducked down in the car while my brother walked by them and looked at me with this "what the F" expression on his face. We tore out of there and I never saw them again. What are the odds? I would say the odds are pretty much exactly 1 in a million, and Pratchett fans know that means it is pretty much a certainty. Also, hell yeah, North Shore! As someone from that area, I will always be excited to hear mention of it. Story 3. This happened back in my undergrad days on the day of an econ midterm. Because the lecture hall is so large and the class has about 300 students, the professor needs a microphone in order to speak to the class. So he's in front of the class giving his whole speech about the exam, 50 questions, multiple choice, make sure to write your name on the Scantron, turn it in up here when you're done, etc. Finally, he bids us all good luck and leaves the lecture hall into his office, which is in the adjacent room. Well, he didn't realize that he left his microphone on, so while the entire class was dead silent during this exam, we all listened to the events that unfolded inside his office. We hear a brief, muffled conversation he is having with the female TA of our class. Then the conversation stops and it becomes painfully evident that they are doing it. The quieted moans of the TA are magnified on the speakers in the lecture hall. The entire class remains dead silent. No one wants to be the first to make some kind of move. Finally, the professor yells loudly, "Oh, F!" and the microphone abruptly shuts off. 20 minutes later, the professor walks out into the lecture hall as if nothing happened. He was fired a week later. Story 4. I'm positive this will get buried, but I like telling this anyway. While visiting family in Michigan for our family reunion a few years ago, I live in California, there was a KKK rally in the small town that we were staying in. Being a young black teenager semi-flipping crap that there's an actual white supremacist rally going on, I decide to hole up in the grocery store where, coincidentally, 6 other black people, most likely everyone of color in the town, were camping out as well. I made eye contact with a guy that looked nearly exactly like me, just slightly older. He claimed to be driving through the town because he's on a road trip with his friends from Hialeah, Florida. I told him I was born there and then adopted and moved to California. He was immediately curious about the implications of how this happened, and I told him my biological mother's name and that she was too young to take care of me, so she had me adopted. After he hears this, he pulls out a picture of his mother at her high school prom. I reach for my wallet, numb with incredulity as my fingers pull free the same exact picture of this young woman. We have the same mom. We're long-lost brothers. Story 5. A few years ago, I made plans to go see 9 Inch Nails in Massachusetts on their final tour with a friend of mine along with his 2 friends. We're from New York. On the trip, the MIA, the song Paper Planes comes on, and the three of us start singing along, making all the noises obnoxiously, which annoys the fourth guy, Shane. He tells us that he hates the song, which ended up being a bad idea because my friend found and purchased the single for that song, complete with 5 remixes, later that day. We headed into town a couple days early, so there was plenty of annoying Shane with the song, along with making jokes about how maybe if we ask nicely, Trent Reznor will play it at the concert. The day of the concert comes, and as the opening act, Street Sweeper Social Club, plays their set, the singer announces, "This next song isn't on our album," and launches into a cover of, you guessed it, Paper Planes. It took a few moments to sink in because I really couldn't believe that it was actually happening. It was too perfect. Here we had been annoying him obnoxiously for the entire trip with this song, which the rest of us genuinely liked for the record, only to have the opening act of the concert play it out of nowhere. Look, Shane, I get that the first couple seconds of the song are a little meh with the guitar just going dun 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 dun. But after that, the song slaps. Am I saying that right? Look, Paper Planes is great. End of discussion. Story 6. My oldest and dearest friend and I met when we were infants. We literally shared a crib together. Our parents have told us hundreds of stories about the things we used to do when we were kids, and we talked to each other about 3 months. I don't even remember not knowing her. She's 23 now, and I'm not too far behind her. She went to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and I went to Michigan State University in East Lansing. About 3 years ago, I randomly went to Ann Arbor with some friends and was trying to find her to catch up and see her new place. As I was walking and talking to her on the phone, she mentioned she lives on Ann Street. I joke with her and say, I live on Ann Street. What a coincidence. We should have breakfast in the morning since we live down the street. Her, funny, jackbutt, just get here. The address is 517. Me, wait, your address is 517 Ann Street? Her, yes. Me, my address is 517 Ann Street. I got to her place and realized that not only do we have the exact same address in different cities, but our crossroads are the same too. She lives on the corner of Ann and Division. I live on the corner of Ann and Division. What kind of strange / spot-on numerology is that? Story 7. Content warning. Mention of infant mortality. If you want to skip this, go ahead 42 seconds. I was traveling through upstate New York and had stopped at a gas station. This is the story that the Egyptian guy working at the register told me. Before his family moved to America, they lived just outside of Cairo. His father was driving home one night when he was flagged down by a woman walking down the road carrying a baby. The woman wanted a ride just down the way, and the father, not wanting to leave this woman stranded at night with a child, said of course. She placed the baby in the back seat and then hopped up front with him. When they got where she had wanted to go, she opened up the door and sprinted away without another word. Now, she's left the baby, so the guy turns back to pick up the child and go run after her. That's when he realizes the baby is dead. She left a dead baby in his car. Story 9. Here's mine. I was walking my older dog one night around 10 p.m. I had him off leash since it was late and we were in a neighborhood. No one to bother. I kept track of him for poo duty as he sniffed around and we were approaching an intersection. The house we were walking along was 20 feet from the sidewalk where I was and was edging by very large juniper bushes which he was checking out. Suddenly he stopped and dove into a bush. This was odd considering he was nearly 10 years old and although he's active, he's not crazy like that. Note, lab husky mix for reference. Out of the bush comes some sort of snarl / scream and all I could think was, crap, he got a raccoon. And out leaps an immature mountain lion, at least 20% larger than my dog. It runs off down the road and I stand there terrified yelling, no effing way, as he comes back to me wagging butt like he's the greatest dog ever, which is very likely considering that cat was much bigger than me. It was probably his most well-earned rawhide bone he's ever earned. Story 10. My sister was driving down the street at 45 miles per hour with her windows open and a deer ran into the street. Instead of hitting this deer, the deer jumped into her car through the window and landed with its head in the foot part of the passenger side seat and its butt on the headrest. The deer was freaked the F out and with its butt in the air proceeds to crap all over the car. She obviously pulled over, several people stopped to help and ask her where the deer was. She just stood there screaming, "It's in the car! It's in the car!" A helpful man opened the door, pulled the deer out, and the deer bounded off like nothing happened. For imagery, she was driving a late 90s Ford Escort at the time. No one believes this story, but it is 100% true. As someone whose family owned a deer farm for many years, I can tell you that at the very least, I believe your story. Deer are friggin' bonkers, idiot animals who love to freak and poop. Story 11. A friend of an old roommate of mine was at the airport a few years ago and saw Bill Nye, the effing science guy, at the terminal next to his. Eventually, he got up the courage to talk to him, but it was nothing more than a small chat and praise. Bill's plane gets called, so the kid leaves him be and sits down trying to digest how cool his life just became. But a few minutes go by, and all of a sudden he hears his name called. Bill Nye is standing at the gate and calls out, "Hey kid, science rules!" then boards the plane. Story 21. The day after I proposed to my wife, we were at the Science Fiction Museum in Seattle, Washington. There's an exhibit that is a giant tumbler full of yellow beads, like thousands of yellow beads, and one black one. It is meant to illustrate the unlikelihood of finding life in the universe. I called her over to tell her how cool it was, and she just pointed at it casually and said, "There's the black one." And she has continued to amaze me every day since. Good times. Story 13. My friend John is a paramedic and firefighter. He also teaches and certifies first aid/CPR. Now, for those that don't know, CPR is not very effective. It has a very low success rate unless initiated soon after an incident, which is why everyone should learn CPR. Even after revival, many people still have serious health effects. One day, John gets into a pretty bad car accident and goes into cardiac arrest. The paramedics and police are dispatched. The officer first on scene knows CPR and initiates chest compression on John. John is revived and, although suffered severe memory loss, is well. The kicker? John taught the officer CPR the week prior to the incident. Honestly, what a fun thing to bring up in class. The reason I am teaching you all CPR right now is because one day you might use it to save my life, because that exact thing happened. Yep, my motivations are selfish, but hey, CPR works. Story 14. My girlfriend and I were traveling in Italy and met this nice Australian girl on the train from Rome to Naples. We chatted a bit and learned that she had just left her friend in North Africa to start traveling on. Fast forward 2 weeks and my girlfriend and I are now on a bus from Brasov, Romania to Bucharest. And we ended up randomly meeting the Australian girl's friend that was left in North Africa. Story 15. I was deployed in Iraq and was out on a convoy on December 31st, 2007. Long story short, I unknowingly peed on an IED which exploded 30 seconds after I walked away. This was on my birthday. Too long didn't read, trudge, trudge, pee, trudge, trudge, boom. Do you have magic pee that delayed the explosion, or are you just one of the luckiest people alive? Lucky, my buddy John was up in the turret. The hood of the truck that set it off went flying like a foot over his head. Edit. Incidentally, about 2/3 of the explosive, it was ammonium nitrate, was apparently wet. It had been buried there for a long time, and a lot of it was ruined and didn't go off. Folks, I want you to know, I've seen the comments about not doing the TLDRs because they are cringy, and I've cut out like 8 of them in this video so far, which is a wildly high number. But this one was in the middle and actually kind of charming. Look, I'm just saying, I've been cutting them for you, but let me have this one, okay? Story 16. My brother's friends are twins and are friends with the Bush twins. Makes for a cute photo op. Well, about 7 years ago, they were invited to their birthday party at the White House. It was a gag gift party. As they are going through the metal detectors, the Secret Service inspect the box with the presents, pull out 2 giant black dildos. They stare down at my brother's friends before proceeding to burst out laughing. I still can't effing believe they went through with it. The truly giant balls. Story 17. Flying 1,100 miles for an interview. I hear someone across the aisle yell my name. I'm thinking, that voice sounds familiar. Turns out it was one of my good friends from college. I'm thinking, no effing way. He got an interview the same time I did, and we stayed next door at the same hotel the night before the interview. And now we're housemates. Both got the job. The end. Story 18. When I was 17, I worked for an excavation/demolition company for the summer. We were gutting an old mill in New Hampshire to turn into high-end lofts. One of the workers was standing on the top of some scaffolding about 12 to 15 feet up using a handheld bandsaw to cut through a large pipe. As he was cutting, a strap supporting the pipe broke, letting it drop down and pinch the blade. This made the saw shoot back towards him and push him off the scaffold. This guy did a complete effing backflip while holding a working saw from over 10 feet up. He landed on his feet, still running. Everyone stopped and stared at him for about 5 seconds before he went back to work. I kid you not, another TLDR. Seriously, I don't know why this thread is so full of them, but it's getting out of hand. Also, this guy is like a secret assassin or something, right? So watch yourself. The next saw might be coming for you. Story 19. A buddy of mine was in Yellow Springs, Ohio, tagging a wall. That's street slang for painting with spray cans, probably illegal. And he heard skateboard wheels, so he lowered his can. He looks up at Dave Chappelle, dolls by sipping a Frappuccino. Mr. Chappelle says, "Nice tag, bees," and keeps on rolling, never stopping. My friend then put down his can and left, shaking his head and laughing. Story 20. I was driving home to our small town from a nearby city, plus or minus 200 miles. We were in a pickup truck and I was alone on the back. We can do that in Africa. We were doing about 80 to 100 miles per hour all the way. Quiet roads, no cops. We get home okay, I grab my stuff and get out, and as my friend starts to reverse back out, the front tire breaks off. I mean like off axle sitting on the ground. Tire rolling into the road. If that had happened anywhere on the road, the truck would have gone over the tea kettle and I would have been spread across 100 yards of tarmac. Story 21. Met a pretty girl online, met her for coffee. I mentioned my birthday and she demanded to see my license. Confused, I comply. Turns out we have the same birthday. More chatting, turns out she was drum major in high school and competed against my ex-wife who was a drum major in a school some 600 miles away and who also had competed against her ex-husband. Also, her ex-boyfriend was dating my ex-girlfriend, which is like the third time that has happened in this city of 1.3 million. The most implausible part is we're still together almost 3 years later. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 2. Might only be understood by college bros/ultimate players. I was playing some pickup ultimate and there were some hot crap kids who thought that throwing an air bounce was really sweet and playing can jam. Apologies to those who don't know what I'm talking about. So I walked up as my jealous self and said, "Oh yeah, I bet I can air bounce it straight through the slot, a very difficult shot by itself, let alone as an air bounce." I nailed it, walked to my car and left. Still have no clue how I did that. Oh, I know all about Ultimate. I've done a few air bounces through the slot in my day. My can jams are all the rage among my fellow Ultimatos. That's what we call ourselves. In fact, I think I might grab my Ultimate bat and go play a few innings? Story 23. Was at a Donald Glover stand-up show a couple weeks ago at RIT. During his routine, he switches to a Q&A bit where he started talking directly with the audience. As he asks us what we want to talk about later in the show, some girl screams out, "Battle me!" Turns out she was a poet who had won a freestyling competition for free tickets to Donald Glover, and she wanted to freestyle battle him. So what does he do? He calls her up on stage. Then he says that we need someone to give a beat. So he calls out for a beatboxer and brings someone else up from the crowd. Finally, since he's participating in the battle, he cannot run it, so out from backstage comes his Derek comedy partner, DC Pearson, who was the opening act, to MC the event and set the rules for the freestyle battle. They then proceeded to do a 3-round wrap-off. Story 24. I wouldn't call it my favorite because it is just off the top of my head, but it is the only thing I can think of at the moment. Last week, I was hanging around outside one of the buildings on campus between classes, and I saw some guy come out of the doors who looked extremely similar to one of my TAs last year. I thought to myself, holy crap, that looks so-and-so. But I knew it wasn't him. But the fact that it looked like the TA made me think back on that class I had last year for a few moments. Literally 30 seconds after the lookalike walks out the door, the actual TA comes out of the door. It was very strange, almost like being reminded and subsequently thinking about the person who had summoned them. Story 25. A while ago, my dad and I had a driver pick us up from San Francisco Airport to drive us home. Since there was a lot of traffic, we had a bunch of time to talk and shoot the crap. Turns out that the driver's daughter was the fiancée of my dad's nephew, my cousin. We both live in Cleveland. We attended the wedding a few months later and again reconnected with the driver while there. We started talking some more and he introduced us to his wife. Apparently, her and my dad went to the same high school, graduated the same year, and even dated for a few months. This was in a very small suburban town outside of Cleveland. Small world indeed. It's so weird when you live in a larger area you aren't even really originally from, and you run into people you have connections with. I run into a few people in Minneapolis that I knew from my small hometown, and it is always weird. Story 26. This isn't that amazing, but when I was in 3rd grade, my sister and I were taken by our father to Toys R Us to get our first Pokemon cards. It was just when Pokemon cards got really popular, so it was a big deal. We received 5 packs each after waiting in line behind dozens of other crazy parents. We had to wait outside the store before it opened. On our way home, my sister opens her first pack of cards, and there it is, Charizard. I nearly crapped myself trying to explain how amazing of a card she had just received. Her response? Ooh, it's shiny. Story 27. I'm really bad at telling stories, but I'll try my best. When I was about 10, I traveled to Newfoundland where I made one friend who was the same age as me. I was only there for a week and left to come back home. Fast forward 10 years, without any contact between us, I'm waiting outside my classroom for the previous class to finish, and who walks out? Yeah, the one friend I had made 10 years ago. Story 28. When my mom was about 19 or 20, her and her twin sister were shopping in Lake City when they were approached by a man in a nice car. He asked if they wanted to get in and maybe have a drink. Ma said he was rather handsome, but they turned him down. Later that year, it was revealed on the news that the man that had approached them was Ted Bundy, and after they turned him down, he abducted and killed his last known Florida victim. Story 29. Once, waiting in line at a restaurant, I saw the guy in front of me. I think I recognize him, but I don't know what. The entire time I am waiting, I am searching my brain as to why I knew him. He turns to me and says, "Do I know you?" We both stood there for a good 10 minutes going through high schools, workplaces, friends, etc. Anything to find out why we knew each other. As far as we could tell, though, there is no reason at all to find out why we knew we should have ever met before. But we both clearly recognized each other. To this day, no clue. Story 30. I went out cruising with a friend of mine and his friends. It was late, probably around 1 a.m. or so, and we were cruising down Main Street. Up ahead, the traffic came to almost a crawl. This is weird since it's late at night. We could see up ahead that there were 3 Ford Focuses all lined up and purposefully slowing traffic. My friend's older brother, who was driving, hops in the median and guns it up to the Focus. We see that it's a bunch of kids getting their rocks off doing butthole-ish things. The driver says, "Oh, F no." He turns to his friend and says, "You know what to do." He speeds ahead of the 3 Focuses and pulls up on the side of the street. My friend grabs a cordless drill from the back of the Suburban, the vehicle we were in, jumps out of the vehicle, and takes off the license plate. The Focuses were past us at this point, still going slow to pee off the people behind them. My friend gets back in the suburbs, and we take off. The driver speeds up to the Focus, gets in the median next to the far left Focus, flips them off, then crashes his Suburban into the Focus, which in turn crashes into the other Focuses. At this point, I am like, what the F just happened? We watch for a minute as we watch these kids trying to get over their airbags and start assessing the damage. Everyone in the vehicle is busting up laughing, and we take off flying down Main Street. When we get back to my friend's house, he puts the license plate back on and popped a dent out of the Suburban. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.